Previously on the Beam Chronicles.
I have other methods for keeping you in check.
What if he's bluffing? It's Howie, right? He lies all the time.
Yeah, that's true, but not here. Hell, you could do that right now. Tell Howie you're done with it and... JT, do not do that right now.
I won't.
We were still called to action now and again to keep us fresh, even when something worthy of our firepower had not presented itself.
I love Jaxon and I love Charlie, but they should not get along at all. And they're like best friends.
If they were meant to be together, then the universe is a very disoriented place.
We just got away from my husband, and now he's using this to get my son back. I know he is. You have no idea what kind of man he is. You have no idea the things he did to us.
No.
Not if you know this wasn't your fault. The kid, Sydney. You need to take care of that kid. For me. You got me a rock?
That's your boner rock.
I always kept my 49th bus present tied around my neck.
He feebly yet frantically reached up to clutch the stone he wore tied around his neck.
Charlie's always been ruthless, efficient, but never so fucking violent. I don't know if a week off is the answer.
And I watched his heart stop beating.
These are the Beam Chronicles with your host, MJ Dooney. Book 1 Initiation, Chapter 19, Jaxon Teaque.
Oh.
Jaxon. Welcome back to the world of the living. You had truly given us quite the scare.
I knew the voice, but how was I hearing it? Howard Prophet greeted me in what appeared to be some sort of hospital, but it was not the medical wing of HQ. It took my eyes a few seconds to adjust to the light, as I'm sure they were expecting to be done receiving light altogether. I was lying in a bed, and he was beside me in a chair, smiling from ear to ear, as if I'd just recovered from some minor procedure and not a literal resurrection. It took me a while to remember what happened, but once the fogginess in my brain wore off, it came back to me. Lindsay Flair had fricasseed me to a crisp, a bullseye to the heart, and I knew I was dead. I knew that. I was stone cold, no bones, dead. I was sure of it. I whipped the sheets off of me to examine my chest, a chest that, last time I checked, was skinless and scorched, my organs exposed as I drew my last breath. She had nailed me directly in the sternum with a beam of pure energy so hot it melted my flesh and bone. There wasn't even a scar. There was no indication whatsoever that I had been drilled by a crazy woman's laser vision. I was dead. I was dead. I should have been dead. Why wasn't I dead? Howie, how am I not? I was dead.
You weren't.
No, I was, Howie. I'm certain.
No, Jaxon, you were just very, very close. A bit too close for my comfort, as a matter of fact.
He leaned over my face, still smiling broadly, but now, from up close, I saw the demon in his eyes.
Oh, and you should have seen the pandemonium, my boy. In a macabre way, I think we all have some curious desire to see how our funeral turnout would be. And in that respect, it would please you to know the ripples your apparent demise sent through my bureau. You will be sorely missed when you go. Sydney, for example, was inconsolable. He clutched to that child, the one from the case. They were bawling like infants, both of them, by the time our backup team got to the site, and he refused to release him at any cost. I think he feels responsible, and really, how do you tell him he wasn't? And Maria, my goodness, poor Maria, weeping and weeping, physically collapsed when I delivered the news. Couldn't make a word out of her despair. She could not even catch her breath. She was so heartbroken. I don't think she ever considered it possible. The man she loved dead, for as strong and powerful as he was, such a gut-wrenching shock. Didn't eat or sleep, neither of them, just cried and cried.
I didn't want to hear this. I hated hearing it. Why was he telling me all of this? I squirmed uncomfortably. I tried to break eye contact, but He pressed his hand into my face and held it in place, forcing me to stare into his satanic eyes. I tried to push his hand off. I tried to knock his arm out of the socket, to throw him into the wall behind us just to get him to shut up. I tried to massacre him, tear him limb from limb, but I couldn't. He wouldn't move.
Now Charlie was the strangest. I suppose I wasn't sure what to expect with her. She's just so unpredictable, even for a man with precognition, but it was just nothing. So profoundly blank, silent, hasn't spoken a word since you apparently died, just sits there this entire time, staring straight ahead, utterly unable to cope. She shut it all down, I suppose. Without you, she was just empty. You were the only thing keeping her afloat. The last bit of...
Stop! Damn it, Howie, please stop telling me.
But I lamented not. I knew, you see. I knew there was no need to fear. Unlike the rest, I did not mourn the loss of my fallen companion.
He leaned in closer so I could feel his hot breath on my face.
Because I didn't think he was really finished. Not just yet. Good old Howie always has a contingency plan. Always has a failsafe. I wasn't ready for you to die, Jaxon. None of us were. And thank goodness I managed to deploy my failsafe while you were still barely on the brink of death. Thank goodness you hung on. Oh, the torture of an entire month. 30 horrible, painful days of mourning for everyone you care about. They say that the first 48 hours is the most excruciating part of loss, but I don't know. The next several hundred don't seem much better to me. Yet in spite of all this despair and torment, at least we can be thankful for the simple fact you are alive. And thank goodness for that, because there is still much work to be done.
He finally backed away, adjusting the cuffs of his shirt as he released me from the pin.
Incidentally, this little accident has illuminated to me the foolishness of utilizing my most powerful equalizers in cases of such trivial importance. All that can come from it is mistakes and tragedy. Quite frankly, I just feel silly about the whole ordeal. From here on out, I'll be sure to let Murphy know. Only assign Ava to cases in which they are used closer to their full potential. No more warm-ups or keeping fresh. No more learning the ropes. I believe you've learned everything that I'd like for you to learn.
He was waiting for this. That's why we kept getting these low ratings cases. He was waiting for me to test him, to see what happened when I took the one out I thought I had left, so he could show me it was never an option. I couldn't even die on my own terms anymore. I had joined Beam months ago on the premise of kill or be killed, with the idea that when the time came to cross that bridge, I would make the right choice. Charlie had saved me from it for so long, allowed me to continue being a coward. I had almost forgotten there was still an even more cowardly way out. But I discovered that Howie had gained power over me that I didn't want to let him have. I discovered with the fly, the choice wasn't so obvious anymore. So to save myself from that, to save them all from me, I finally resolved to do what I should have done in the first place: die. Stop contributing and die. My last resort ticket to freedom was always just a mirage. He was just baiting me to get me to try to drink so he could now maintain his air of on-my-side friendliness as he demonstrated the prison of my coerced immortality.
Good to have you back, son.
He patted my thigh.
Probably ought to get some rest, though.
And he made his way from my bed to the door. His hand was on the handle when I finally spoke again. Can I see them? Maria and Sid, Charlie, can I see them all now? He looked at me, feigned surprise. My God, he was so smooth and genuine, like he almost felt the way he pretended to. It made my skin crawl.
Jaxon, don't you think you should rest? What you've recovered from, I think it'd be wise for you to take your time and rest.
Please, Howie, I'm sorry. Please just let me...
My dear boy, what on earth do you have to be sorry for? Dying? There is simply no need to rush the process, Jaxon. The failsafe is a very temperamental sort of thing. I'm not so certain how well it will keep. There's no reason to jump the gun and hop into the world again an hour or so after you just damn near left it.
Wait, what do you mean an hour? You said a month. You said it's been a month. He frowned, scratching his chin and considering.
And now I know you're just recovering from a near-death experience, so perhaps your short-term memory is a bit fuzzy, but I do not recall.
You said a month. The first 48 hours is the most excruciating part of loss, but the next several hundred... You said it, that I had been dead for a month.
You are correct. My apologies.
He nodded, stroking his goatee.
But Jaxon, what I meant was the next 48 hours would be the hardest part.
What?
Sorry for the confusion, friend. As I said, my failsafe is somewhat fickle. I simply can't be certain if the effects will take. You have shown great progress over the last hour. No more holes in your chest. Yes, you seem to be in perfectly good health now, but I would not want to spring the news on your poor tortured friends and then have you die all over again. The down and the up, the back down again, the emotional roller coaster, it would be horribly confusing. What kind of monster would I be to subject them to that? No, my intention was you will spend the next month in here, alone, with me ensuring that you are truly in perfectly good condition, at which time I will assess whether or not you are permitted to see your friends. They, in the meantime, unfortunately, will just have to cope through a very challenging month. And God willing, that is all.
Oh my God. It was a punishment. He was punishing me for trying to die. I was going to sit here for a whole month just thinking about it, about Sydney holding that kid and bawling, about Maria collapsed on the ground, about Charlie staring into space empty and broken, and no, I couldn't bear it. 1 hour of knowing my friends, my family were suffering was too much, but an entire month, possibly more. I jumped out of bed and got on my knees begging him for mercy. Howie, I'm sorry.
Jaxon, this is twice now that you've apologized, and for the life of me, I have no idea what you could possibly be.
I'm sorry, God damn it! I shouted as loud as I could, and my entire body shook. His mouth slowly curled into the most subtle, wicked sneer. I made my way back to my feet. Please, Howie, please, I'll stay here. I'll rest forever. As long as you want, I'll do whatever you ask me to. Please, I'll never question you again. Just tell them I'm all right. I just want them to know that I'm all right.
Then, perhaps, you would do well to rest, and thus ensure that they go without knowing you are well for only a month and no longer. Ensure that the hole lacerated in your chest doesn't get painfully torn back open again. Ensure that I'm convinced you have restored yourself to good condition, and ensure that more drastic measures will not be made necessary to get you back on my team. You sit there for 1 month and ensure those things. And after that, we will re-examine the situation. If all of this is unsatisfactory to you, perhaps you should think twice the next time you choose to be so reckless with your life.
And then he was gone. I threw myself against the door. I pushed it with every ounce I had, every Jaxon I could generate at the highest energies. I'd thrown a half-ton Purple Man and semi-trucks and planes. I'd stood up to Tyler Foon's most powerful cannon of water. It was enough force to turn coal into a diamond, but this door, this regular, wooden, dead-bolted door, didn't budge. At least now I knew he wasn't bluffing about being able to contain me. I spent the most excruciating, agonizing month in that room, knowing everyone I loved thought I was dead. I ate enough to live, but I didn't taste. I slept, or at least I tried to, but the nightmares kept me up. There were times when I just screamed as loud as I could, hoping someone would hear me. And I kept waiting for Charlie to six me and group in, but then why would she even be looking for me? Hell, I didn't even know if I was in HQ at all. 1 minute I was gone, the next in this bed. I could be anywhere in the world, and that was where I would be. For one torturous month alone, with the images Howie had given me haunting my brain. They were the worst 30 days of my young life, and I dared not tempt Howie's patience again to make it last any longer. This was the punishment for just trying to take the easy way, for killing myself and passively opting out. This was the recompense I got just for quitting. I couldn't imagine what else he had in store if I ever actually tried to fight back. And when the month had finally passed, when I'd scratched 30 marks into the cinder block wall, when I thought I couldn't stand it anymore, the door creaked open, and Howie popped his head inside. And I was broken and submissive and ready to do whatever it took to get back to my friends. I was finally, after months of defiance, in good condition.
What do we think? Did the failsafe work?
I nodded.
Yes, I'd bet you'd just kill to get back home. Let's take our leave then.
He threw a bag over my head and led me from the room.
Level 5 clearance required for Howard Prophet's office access. Welcome, Howie.
Now, Jaxon, let's have a bit of fun with this,
He smiled at me like we were best friends throwing a surprise party as we rode up the elevator to his office where he had convened the entire crew.
When the doors open, you hide behind the corner. Allow me to play up the theatrics a bit. Oh, can you imagine the release when they all realize their month from hell is over and your month in heaven was a facade? I'm kidding. Goosebumps just thinking about how happy they will be.
In a way, I thought he might have been demonstrating another lesson, something about how he could take it all away from me and give it all back, how I should be grateful for this fantastic joy that he was granting me, this moment of pure happiness, as if it wasn't him that forced me to sit in the dark for a month while they all cried. It was twisted and ass backwards, but I think down in the subversive pits of his hollow soul, he honestly believed the punishment matched the crime and the payback atoned for the torture. I didn't even care. I just wanted to see my friends and tell them I was all right. I just wanted to see my family. And so I nodded submissively and ducked behind the wall and waited for the cue to reveal myself. I could hear their voices. I knew they were there, and all I wanted to do was burst out of the elevator and finally ease their pain. But I stayed hidden because Prophet told me to.
My friends,
He said it remorsefully, stepping out of the elevator.
it has been a very trying time for all of us. The loss of our brother in arms, Jaxon Teaque, was a loss I think we were all ill prepared for. I myself could hardly stand it, so I resolved not to. This is the reason for which I have called you all here today. They say Howard Prophet always has a contingency plan. In this particular case, I like to call it a failsafe. Jaxon.
And there they all were. Maria, Sid, Phil, Murphy, all sitting in the chairs around Howie's desk. I watched their faces transition in slow motion from unbearably sad to purely dumbfounded. Only Charlie, leaning against the window on the far side of the room and staring out of it, did not respond. She'd probably already sixed me coming up the elevator. Charlie was notoriously hard to surprise. I was still kind of expecting a bit of a reaction. Sydney was the first to move, and he stood up so forcefully, bounding over to me, that he tossed his chair into the window behind him, nearly hitting the still motionless Charlie had she not ungrouped in a timely fashion. He grabbed my cheeks and bent over so that his eyes were centimeters from mine.
How can this be? This cannot be. Jaxon, is it really, truly you?
It's me, bud. I choked back the tears. It's me. And his face exploded into blissful happiness. He screamed, hoisting me into the air and spinning me in circles.
It is a miracle. Howard Prophet has performed a miracle. Our brother is alive and well, friends. Our brother Jaxon is alive.
Suddenly the spinning stopped and he pulled me into the tightest embrace, perhaps with more than a few too many enhanced muscles.
Oh, Jaxon, you had told me that it was not my fault, Before you were dead, you told me that I was not to blame, but in spite of this, I could not escape the feeling that it was my fault anyway.
Yeah, they call that guilt, Sydney.
I did not like it.
I laughed as he realized Caraway standing behind us and set me down. She didn't move, just stared at me, softly crying, too surprised to speak. Hi, Maria.
It's really him, right?
She sat around me to Prophet, still with his arms folded proudly by the elevator.
It's not like a robot or a clone or... This is the real, actual Jaxon, right?
You have my word, Maria. It is 100% Jaxon Teaque, the genuine article, same as always. My failsafe recovered him from the brink of death. We just had to take a while to make sure the effects were permanent.
I thought I heard Charlie scoff, perhaps knowingly, but it was hard to tell from across the room.
You little bastard!
Murphy chuckled as he strode over to shake Howie's hand.
You sneaky son of a bitch, Prophet. I knew you had something up your sleeve. I knew what they said was true. Always got a contingency plan. Well, this was one doozy of a plan, huh?
Yes, well, as I mentioned, failsafe.
How in the fuck, Howie?
Phil still hadn't come out of the too flabbergasted to shut his mouth phase yet.
I saw his body myself. It was pulp. Organs everywhere, 4th-degree burns. It was fucking butchery. How in the fuck?
Phil, try to show a little respect, will you?
Howie disapproved of the language.
I can only tell you that the failsafe is one of those things that only I may know all of the details of. It has limited, specific uses, and I cannot guarantee its continued success. I advise against relying on it as a solution in the future, but for this situation, for this time, we were lucky. It has saved our boy's life. Maria, as I have assured you, that is the real Jaxon.
She hadn't stopped looking at me, staring into my eyes, trying to find something to prove it to herself. Nothing Howie said sunk in, nothing anyone did registered. She was just quivering and glaring. And then finally she broke down and collapsed into my arms, like literally collapsed. I had to bend my knees to catch her. I held her so close my shirt was getting wet from her face buried into it, but I couldn't even care.
I thought you were gone. I thought I lost you, Jaxon.
I know. I promise I'm here. It's me, Caraway. I'm back.
He is back!
Sydney pumped his fists into the air.
He is back. Charlie, my sister, our brother is risen from the dead. Do you understand what has happened? He has returned, Charlie. Jaxon is alive!
And she finally moved. She turned her head slightly, just enough for it to count as moving at all, and half smiled.
I see it, Sid. Good to have you back, JT. Kinda missed you.
You too, Charlie. You have no idea. And then she returned to the window. Were we in private, I would have pressed, but between Caraway crumpling into me and sobbing, Murphy tussling my hair, and Sydney literally tossing a too stunned to object Phil, the commotion distracted me from my best friend.
Jaxon, the boy.
Sydney set Phil down momentarily, unable to contain himself, and again grabbed my shoulders, this time sandwiching Maria between us.
The boy from the case, Lindsay Flair's son. I took care of the boy, Jaxon, just as you requested of me.
That's good, Sid. That's great.
Turns out the dad was an anomaly too. Some sort of psychic brain control, you know? He could germinate pure emotion within the brains of his victims, pure sorrow, anger, pain, only remedied by him. And when the mom manifested her laser vision, the mind control stopped affecting her. Maybe it manifested because of his tricks, we don't exactly know yet, but once she realized her husband had been manipulating her for years, she tried to run, and the asshole beat her for it, and she melted half his face off. Eventually she got away, took her son, and ran. Then he reported her while she was still too scared to report him. Anyway, we've since busted the guy. Charlie put a bullet between his eyes before he could get his front door open.
I glanced over at her, still staring into the distance. And the kid?
I wanted to keep him, because I had promised you I would take care of him, but apparently I am too young to be a father. One must be 18. I am only 17 until February. I explained only 2 months from now I would be eligible and that I had a very content lobster, but they told me my lifestyle is not conducive to raising a child. I was assured he would be adopted quickly by a loving, caring family, and I was given the information to check up on his progress throughout the process. We can now do this together, my friend. We can follow through on a happy ending for him together.
That's awesome. Sydney, thank you.
No, thank you for being alive.
And he again lifted Phil and tossed him like a teddy bear.
Jesus, Sydney, knock it off! I'm gonna retch!
Gah. Maria, you're kind of choking me. Ease up a little, will you?
No.
And the whole room, my whole family laughed, even Howie, but not Charlie. I spent the entire rest of the day with these people, hanging out and celebrating my second chance at life. Murphy cooked for us in his apartment, and Murphy could cook. We sat around and told stories and made jokes at my expense. They filled in the gaps for me, all the stuff I'd missed that they'd been doing in the past few weeks. Sid told a story about a bust he'd gone on, which turned out to be some harmless loudmouth like Fly used to be, all bravado and showboating, and Sydney was so downtrodden and discouraged by my death, he just decked the guy in the mouth a minute into his manifesto, shattered his jaw, and then tossed him out cold into the back of the truck without even saying a word. It was the first time Prophet ever apologized to an anomaly for Beam's treatment. The night went on, we laughed and ate and partied. It was as if I never left, almost enough to make me forget why I wanted to in the first place. Maria slept over in my apartment that night for the first time ever. She spent most of the night just looking at me, but we did some other stuff too. She fell asleep next to me, probably as soundly as she had since I died, but after a few hours of watching her, at 3 a.m, I realized tonight was set to be a night of insomnia for me. I wished it weren't so. I was completely exhausted. Hadn't strung together more than 20 minutes of sleep since I died, not to mention the rowdy day I'd had, and yet, in spite of this, I was awake. It wasn't the discomfort, the tumult of my friend's suffering that kept me up tonight the way it had for the last several nights. The nightmares were gone, but in their place was just harrowing eternity. Thought a lot about the devil that night. I thought about how in the stories growing up in catechism and whatnot, he was red and spiky and terrifying. Satan was on fire. He smelled like brimstone, forked tail. You could simply look at him and identify him on the spot. You're the devil. And he would look back at you and command you to sin, point you at the split in the road, and good little Catholic boys would stand in his face and defy him, walk down the virtuous way, and he'd curl up his fingers and brandish his fist, curse God above, then retreat back to hell. The devil was obvious. He was easy. Right and wrong were clear. Hell sucked. Always. Nobody ever told me it was all just a metaphor. Nobody ever told me that the real devil was handsome and gentle and kind, that the whole while he was flaying the skin from your bones and signing your contract in blood, he acted like he was helping you along the righteous path, and he gave you things, trinkets, presents, a lifestyle, people you cared about, just so he had some collateral to take from you when you tried to do what was right. Satan had given me such a comfortable, beautiful purgatory to distract me from my damnation, and he destroyed it when I tried to defy him. Was I wicked for accepting or even enjoying the best part of my only terrible option? Hell was comfortable and heaven was impossible. Maybe it was time to stop struggling to escape. What other choice did I have? I finally got out of bed, carefully, without disturbing Caraway, and made my way into the kitchen, half to distract myself from my own stupid torment, half because something inside me told me I should. I opened the refrigerator, squinting into the light, pulled out a carton of milk, and went to pour a glass. Insane behavior. I didn't even drink milk. I only had that one carton for cereal. That's when I noticed Charlie, sitting on my dining room table in the shadows, watching me. I dropped the milk, and it spilled all over the tile. Jesus Christ, Shade, you scared the hell out of me. What are you doing in my apartment? You can't just group in here in the middle of the night uninvited like that. She ignored everything I said.
You know, when Sid tells the story about you getting hit, he still asks why you didn't get out of the way, or why you didn't shove the bitch while she was trying to kill her own kid. He still questions it after a month of telling it. And everyone asks him for his first-hand account, so he's told it a lot. But he cannot piece it together why you just stood there and took it. Like it's some great unsolvable mystery, like nobody could ever construct an answer he'd be satisfied with, because the truth is that far outside of his comprehension. The very concept of what you did is just something he can't even process. He still asks why every single fucking time.
Charlie, listen.
Now, Maria.
She hopped off the table and started walking toward me.
She's more worldly than Sydney, but I don't think she could even cope with the idea of trying to piece it together. She'd get derailed so early in the process, trying to understand. I think she'd probably just forever consider it a freak accident tragedy sort of thing. That's how blinded she is by her love for you. She couldn't even fathom the truth. And if I told her, which for anything I couldn't even approach that proposition, but if I did, I still don't think she would believe me.
She finally stepped into the light of the kitchen, slowly making her way up to me, folding her arms.
But I'm not as naive as Sydney, and I'm sure as hell not in love with you like Maria. So when I hear the story, I understand what actually happened. You made a choice. A shitty, selfish choice. You left us behind, Jaxon. After everything I've done for you and everything we've been through, you left me.
Charlie, I'm sorry.
No, see, that's the worst part, isn't it? I can't even be mad at you for it. Because if I blame you for taking your last resort option and bailing on the whole thing, then I'm the selfish one. You'd rather die than be complicit, not even actually at fault, just associated with what Beam does. Where the fuck does that leave me? You're finally justified, some sort of decency champion martyr, and I'm this little depravity worm crawling around in the shadow of your sacrifice, dragging you into the dark so I'm not lonely, and I missed you. Holy shit, I missed you so much, you fucking ass, but I couldn't even be mad at you for quitting. I can't even be mad at you now. Do you have any idea how that makes me feel?
Mad?
You left me, Jaxon. I can't even blame you for doing it. I can't believe you actually did.
Her words stuck in me so profoundly and pointedly, rattling about in my tortured skull, that all I wanted to do was rewind time so that none of it ever happened, just to escape this single moment of her emotionless disbelief toward my abandonment. I would have said anything to make it right, but I couldn't come up with a single productive thing. I'm sorry for committing suicide to avoid partaking in a system that promotes mass murder seemed a little too on the nose, but then I thought of something. It wasn't entirely productive, but it was better than more apologizing. I cleared my throat after what felt like decades of cold silence. When Lindsay shot me, the laser girl, she hit me square in the breastbone, like smack dab, middle of the sternum. And it knocked me back, too, 10 feet easily. I mean, she really walloped me. And I remember after I'd caught the kid and Sid snapped her neck, I rolled over onto my back and my guts were, like, hanging right out. It didn't even hurt. Like, I don't think my brain was allowing me to feel it at that point, the shock or the adrenaline. Whatever. But then, right as Sid got to me, when I was lying on the ground, watching my own heartbeat sputter out, ready to die, I had this little 1-second panic attack about something. So I tapped on my chest, right here, just to make sure. I pulled out the string I always wore around my neck, tied around the stone that she gave me as a 49th bus gift. Just to make sure she didn't blow up my boner rock. I was literally watching my own organs fail, and the only thing I thought about was this. She laughed, a quick burst of a laugh, like she was trying to withhold it, but it leaked through. Her eyes were still a little terrifying, and I knew she wasn't quite ready to break her defenses yet, but in spite of herself, even if just for a split second, she laughed. I took it as a sign that I was on the right path. I cannot believe that I left you behind either. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. What is wrong with me? It was selfish and horrible, and you can be as mad at me as you want, Charlie, and I really, really missed you.
Jaxon, if you ever do this again, I swear to God, I'll...
Kill me?
Promise me you won't.
I can't do it again. Failsafe, remember? Howie won't even let me.
No, fuck Howie. This isn't about him. This is me talking to you. Stop making jokes. Just say it. You promise me that you will never do this again, JT. You promise me.
Yeah, I promise. She stared at me like she was waiting for the rest. I promise, Charlie, I'll never do it again.
You don't belong to yourself anymore, Jaxon.
Oh, trust me, I've realized that.
You belong to me.
She practically shouted it, firm enough to shut me up, but soft enough not to wake Care away.
To us, your family. You can't just die and make it all go away. Sorry, but that's not how it works. Not ever. You belong to other people. Your life is mine now. And Sid's, and Maria's, even Phil's and Murph's. You don't like it? Too bad. Deal with it. The fact is, we're all going to get out of this shit together, or we're simply not going to get out of it. And maybe we plummet into the abyss screaming bloody murder, but at least we'll do it together. Understand? Do not try this shit ever again, or so help me, Jaxon. Tell me that you get it.
I nodded slowly. I get it, Charlie. It's not my sacrifice to make anymore. I get it. We stared at each other for a while, indestructible eye contact, as had grown to be our most frequent, poignant, and important form of communication. Any question of my sincerity in this promise would be erased by our glare down, and I watched as the suffering and fire subdued from her breathtaking, icy blue eyes. She was gorgeous. It had been so long since I thought of Charlie in that way, but during these elongated moments just looking at her, it was hard not to remember. She really was, far and away, the most beautiful, perfect thing I'd ever seen. How, in the name of God, did I ever give her up? How did I leave her? Finally, when she was convinced I truly understood, she went back and sat at the table.
Drink your damn milk.
Oh, thank you for permission to drink my own milk. I poured a new glass and began to do so.
Disgusting. Who even drinks milk?
I tried not to laugh, even though she was right.
So how long have you been alive exactly?
19 years. She shot me a familiar look of disdainful impatience I wasn't sure I'd see again. You'd be surprised how much you miss things like that when you're dead. Oh, you meant... right, 1 month.
No, shit. So you were only actually dead for like a couple of hours then?
Well, Howie still holds firm that I never actually died, but I don't buy that. Anyway, yeah, he resurrected me, told me my job wasn't done yet, let me sit in there for a month resting while thinking about everyone at home all crying and mourning me. I tried to blow up the whole room, but nothing moved.
Wow. What an asshole. Hey, I told you he wasn't bluffing about containing you, though.
Hey, how long were you sitting in my kitchen waiting to confront me?
Oh, only like 10 seconds.
She began weaving a lock between her fingers.
I grouped in right after you got up, but I was sitting in my room sixing you for hours. I had to wait for you to finish, boinking Caraway and all. That's why you did it all along, right? Get that elusive I thought you were dead fuck?
Charlie, mother of God. So far over the line even for you.
Anyway, I said what I needed to say. I got what I wanted out of you, and it's late. I shouldn't probably stick around. Wouldn't want Maria to wake up, come out here and see us having a little milk chat, literal hours after she popped her cherry, uncork her deep-seated jealousy and whatnot. But anyway, it is good to have you back, JT. Like I said, I kind of missed you.
I love you, Charlie. In a sense, it was completely random, yet for some reason now seemed like the perfectly appropriate time to say it. She scoffed.
Wow, yeah, okay, cool. I definitely should get out of here.
No, come on, not like that. Don't make it weird. It's just... I spent a month thinking about all the things I never said to people, and I realized I should just start saying them, especially the really important ones. And I want you to know it. I don't want to leave it left unsaid again, so there it is. You're my best friend, the best I've ever had. I love you. She bashfully avoided eye contact, drumming her fingers on the table, shaking her head. What is this, to therapy, talk about my feelings for you?
No. Well, a little, it's just... I haven't heard anyone say that in a very, very long time. And I love you too, JT. And I'm not just saying that to save you from feeling awkward, it's honestly true, and I probably shouldn't have left it unsaid either. I love you.
For a moment while we sat there, I wondered, in spite of everything, how I'd managed to convince myself that the good was not enough to counter the bad. Deep down, I knew from some absolutely neutral perspective it truly wasn't, but my God, looking at her, it sure seemed like it was.
Hey, Jaxon, do you think we,
She looked like she was about to say something or do something important, something that dawned on her that instant, something burning and urgent that she ultimately decided to suppress. She was, after all, the master of suppression.
Anyway, good night.
She grouped back to her room.
Thank you for listening to the first episode of the Beam Chronicles of 2024, a fiction podcast written and produced by me, MJ Dooney. First of all, Happy New Year. If you were curious, I did meet my 2023 goal of 1,000 downloads sometime in the last week or so. Thank you sincerely for your contribution to that. I'm not sure what the goal is for 2024, maybe 10,000. Let's see what happens. As always, a 5-star review would be marvelous if you haven't already done so, and if you want to talk to me directly with some constructive criticism or just to say hi, beamchronicles@gmail.com, I will happily respond. Also, as always, I need to plug social media: TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. Beam Chronicles, like, follow, subscribe. Right now it's pretty barren, but the first book is almost wrapped up, 25 chapters total, so only 6 to go, which I think, with the holidays out of the way, should be the next 6 weeks in a row. That means somewhere around mid-February, I think I'll probably take a few months off just to promote myself a bit, which is all to say, if you're not following me on socials, please do. I promise to be more interesting in the new year. All music and sound effects were sourced through the Epidemic Sound Library. Special thanks to Sergio Duarte for creating the cover art for this podcast. You can find him on Instagram. Thanks as always for listening.